is worthy of a tiny epic, since the man, born with Slavic roots, moved from Trieste to Corfu, married a Greek woman, and later, on being branded a deserter by the Austro-Hungarian army during World War I, fled on the first ship he found, landed in Italy, and settled in Milan. On his deathbed, or so the story goes in Last Summer in the City, Calligarich's grandfather, who had travelled the seas in his younger days and whose mind was already drifting to a sea-girt Trieste of memory, asks his son to let him taste some seawater. Though the request may seem strange, coming as it did in landlocked Milan, his son, in Calligarich's novel, has no choice but to get in his car and drive all the way to Genoa with his 14-year-old son, whose brooding silence seems to have become the norm. The boy's father finally reaches the sea, fills up a bottle with water, and drives all the way back to Milan, only to find his dying father already unconscious. Still, the dutiful son, who could very well be Gianfranco's father, daubs his father's face with the salty water, even if the dying man is past caring or being grateful for the gesture. Seawater is not in the slightest insignificant, since Leo Gazzara, the narrator of the novel, who at times could probably be a stand-in for the author himself, will choose to leave Milan and move to Rome, in good part because of its proximity to the beach. There are, in the novel, numberless times when, on a lark, the narrator will hop in his car and drive for a good half hour to the sea. Trieste, after all, faces the sea, and finding the sea anywhere on the planet remains, in more ways than one, a form of homecoming for the narrator. His Triestine grandfather found closure by asking for seawater, and, 15 years later, at the age of 30, Leo will too. Diving into the sea or just walking along the shoreline remains a source of undiminished bliss and purifying solace for Leo, a moment when his persistent penury, failures, defeats, and the unyielding solitude that he struggles to flee as obstinately as he keeps seeking it out are all summarily wiped off by a sudden plunge under water, an instance of physical and spiritual redemption that this young man is unable to find elsewhere. I dived in and swam until I was out of breath. Then I turned and played dead, listening to the swish of the water around my ears. I felt good. I couldn't remember ever feeling that good. This, in many ways, could be the very best that life has to offer Leo Gazzara. He fritters away his days and nights in Rome, on sleepless hours with Arianna, or in tumultuous all-night benders with his pal Graziano, while all he's desperately trying to do is reshuffle the worthless cards that life has dealt him. In this, as so many critics were all too quick to point out, he is the incarnation of Marcello Rubini of La Dolce Vita, 1960, and now, with the wisdom of hindsight, of Jep Gambardella of La Grande Bellezza, 2013. Both films are about the aimless lives of well-heeled journalists whose careers were taken over by worldly ambitions when, in truth, their deeper vocation was literature, a dream destined to be perpetually postponed, if not altogether shelved. As colourful as Marcello's life may seem, the shallow itinerary of his day-to-day is a perpetual skidding from one woman to another, one nightclub after another, one gathering, one soirée, one person to the next. Gambardella's itinerary is hardly different. Clearly inspired by Fellini's classic from 50-plus years earlier, Sorrentino's The Great Beauty is a far less sombre portrait of the decadent lifestyle of the privileged few, and reflects an Italy that moved on following its startling post-war boom of the early 60s, then survived the anni di piombo of the 70s and 80s, the years of lead, when Italy faced an endless assault of political carnage that eventually claimed the life of Prime Minister Aldo Moro in 1978, only to come out as elegantly disenchanted and unflappably put together, but no less feckless and disaffected than the 60s Rome of Fellini's speckling Via Veneto.